Hello everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to be taking a look at another map that I have picked up on my travels through the northern Midwest. We are going to be going to Washington Island. It is an island in the middle of Lake Michigan, which is the same lake that Chicago and Milwaukee are on. And this map is quite interesting in the way that it shows the island. But first, I want to give a sense of place. In the couple of videos that I've had about the Midwest so far, I've mostly been focusing on the northern area, Wisconsin and Michigan. I have here an atlas of Wisconsin. That shows the entire state over the series of around 80 pages. 81, I believe exactly. And this helps give a bit of a picture of where we've been talking about and where we will be talking about today. So, obviously, we don't see much outside of the state, but we can't see the general shape. There is a way or a saying that people of the state of Michigan have about their state, which is that the lower peninsula, which has most of the major cities and most of the population, looks like a mitten. And I think there's a way that you can do that for Wisconsin as well. So Michiganders will typically do this to signify their home peninsula, say where they point to where they are, either Detroit, Saginaw, Bay City, Sheboygan, St. Ignace, Traverse City, Grand Rapids. But you can kind of do the same thing for Wisconsin. Of course, you kind of have to squint a bit. You have to move your fingers to the side, but you can kind of guide your hand along the north side. And the part that we are focused on today is this little nub. That is my thumb here. And that is this Door County area. So along the shores of Lake Michigan, which is this body of water here, we have Chicago, which we saw a lot of in my first video about the Chicago Owl. You have the other major city of Milwaukee, which is the largest city in Wisconsin. You go up to cities that are still within the influence of Milwaukee, so West Bend, Sheboygan, to a lesser extent, Manitowoc and Two Rivers. But by this point, you're getting significantly more rural. And in fact, I would argue by Sheboygan, you're getting quite rural. And that is taken up to 11, with this peninsula jutting out into the lake and separating Green Bay from the rest of Lake Michigan. And yes, this is the same Green Bay as the Green Bay Packers, which are a National Football League American football team in Green Bay. Here we have this peninsula that juts out into the lake, off to the side, far to the west. Sorry, the east. Far off to the east, we have Washington Island, which is where the map shows. And to get a better sense of where we are, zoom in a little bit while we can. So here we have Green Bay, here. We have the rest of Lake Michigan here. And north of this line is Door County, which is widely known around the Midwest as a rather rural, rather relaxed, but at times very resort-like, idyllic place among the Midwest. It has quite variable geography, both having typical Midwestern farmland in the center, but with quite dramatic geography along the shorelines, including dunes, sand dunes, rock cliffs. It's quite beautiful. If we continue northward, took a while to get there. Traveling northward, we can see the peninsula narrows as it gets farther north. It tilts eastward till the tip at Northport. And from here we have Washington Island off to the east. In between the peninsula at Northport and the island is a passageway in the water is known as Death's Door, which comes from the French name for the body of water, which is La Porte des Morts, literally the door of death. And it's this Death's Door that is the namesake of the county and of the peninsula. So quite morbid, but the reason why it bears that name is because it's quite a narrow passage, quite easy to get your ship stuck on sandbars or stuck on other lower areas around the peninsula and around the islands throughout the peninsula, throughout the body of water. So it can be easy to run aground and have multiple shipwrecks, which it is known for. Today, there are 2 ferry services that go across the Death's Door passage. So nowadays, it is quite easy to get across, and it's a lot less treacherous now that there are established ways to get across. Now, Washington Island itself is all of the characteristics of Door County to the extreme. It is quite well known for being a relaxing place to be, quite idyllic. In fact, the traveling experience from the mainland to the island is sometimes known as going north of the tension line, rather metaphorical or mystical line separating the mainland from the island. There's a book series by the same name that is a quite wonderful slice of life of the island and of the peninsula. So that is how I've learned of it, and I'm willing to bet it is quite accurate from being there. It's quite a small island, but quite large at the same time. It's a bit paradoxical because it is contained as an island, but even so, it's about 7 miles north to south, from northernmost to southernmost, and about 5 or 6 east to west. So pretty compact, but quite enough room to be able to explore and have some space between you and whoever is visiting the island with you. And one last thing I'll say while we are looking at this topographical map is one more ferry, the Carvey Ferry, this time not connecting Washington Island to the mainland, but Washington Island to another island. This is Rock Island, home to Rock Island State Park, one of the many state parks of the state of Wisconsin, which is an additional ferry passage that I believe is technically privately owned, but they work with the Wisconsin Parks District to get people to and from the islands. Let's close the atlas for now. Go back to our main map, our brochure map. I do say that it is a brochure map because it has quite a bit of information about each location that exists on the island, and I would say it is so chock full of information about each location that I would probably say this is every public location on the island. And we get into the history of the island here. Like most places in the upper Midwest, the first European settlers were typically French. 1635 is when Jean Nicolet visited, as well as Père Paquette, who is known as a great missionary to the peoples living in and around the northern Midwest. He is the Marquette that is responsible for the naming of Marquette University in Milwaukee. Beyond that, in the 1800s, we get the history of the Icelandic population. The North Country, northern Wisconsin, and northern Michigan, and northern Minnesota are known nowadays for having highly Nordic populations coming from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and in Washington Island's case, particularly Icelandic, encouraged by W.F. Wickman in the year 1870. So over 150 years of Icelandic influence. Of course, nowadays, with it being such a tourist hub, the island has quite a variety of different peoples living there. Here is our enlarged map of the island. And we see here the ferries to Northport and Gills Rock. We have the northern tip of Detroit Island and Detroit Harbor. And we also have the western portion of Rock Island, which I realize I forgot to mention. It also has the first lighthouse built by the U.S. government on Lake Michigan, which is Potawatomi Light. Potawatomi are a indigenous people group, indigenous tribe. One of many that are part of the Anishinaabe people group that span from the southern parts of the northern Midwest, so Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota, all the way north to the southern and middle portions of Manitoba and Ontario in Canada. They are similar to the Ojibwe peoples, as well as the Saulteaux, the Mississauga, the Odawa, and Ojibwe. Starting from the place where people are most likely to get onto the island, which is from the ferry, we start in the southwest corner, where we get Detroit Harbor, we get the Welcome Center and the marina. As we follow Lobdell Point Road, we get into a narrow isthmus past the gas station to the first major intersection of the island. This way goes to Detroit Harbor Road, and this way, going away from the post office, is the main road. Going north on the main road, we get to downtown Washington, as it's well considered. This is where you get your community center, your grocery store, police station, your school, performing arts center, your bank, your baseball field, golf course, for those who do sport. Continuing north past West Harbor and Michigan roads, get to the American Legion. If we turn right here, we get to the Stavkirke. And let me see if we can find a better image of it. Seems like going forward was not the way to go. Here we go. This is rather small, probably won't be picked up on the camera, so maybe I will try to lift it. But this is an old wooden church. Quite a beautiful place to visit. And nearby to the old church, the Stavkirke, you have the lavender fields. have the largest lavender farm in the Midwest. And it's quite ornate with a lot of white trellises and gazebos and other white painted metal furniture along to make it quite beautiful. Although I went earlier in the year, so I did not see all of this beauty, all of the lavender and bloom, but I saw quite enough. Returning to the map, from the lavender, let's go back to the main road. I have another number of places to see at this intersection with Jackson Harbor Road. We have to the left along the northwesternmost part of the island, Little Lake, as well as a historical museum, the Jacobson House Museum. We also have the Bethel Church. And we have the major beach area of the island at Washington Harbor, which is known as Schoolhouse Beach. It is not a beach in the traditional relaxing sense of white sand. It is quite rocky. There are lots of white, quite pale white rocks along the shoreline. Some of them are rather good for skipping into the lake. The shoreline is also covered by a cedar grove, so there's quite a bit of shade, quite a bit of places to protect you from the sun there. But it's also a beautiful place to get to enjoy the beauty of being on the island. Continuing along Jackson Harbor Road, we have Mountain Park, which is not really a mountain because this is a rather decently sized island, but not well enough to have its own mountain. It is a nice large hill on the island, but does have a lookout tower where you can look out to the north and to the east and see beautiful views of those edges of the island. So quite a climb, but probably the one place on the island where you can find such a climb. Continuing along, we have the Seavers Art Gallery, which is an arts collective gallery. Allows people on the island to show off their art, as well as a chance for them to teach others and give classes about how to make their own art. So some show, some educational purposes. And continuing along to the northeastern part of the island, we have Jackson Harbor, which, as we've mentioned before, can get you to Rock Island if you take the coffee ferry. But it also contains a small but quite educational maritime museum with lots of old boating equipment and navigational information and maps. So quite a wealth of information in quite a small space. It's quite lovely. Continuing on, we have follow the outline of the island. Turn inward where the road doesn't continue. Go down to Percy Johnson Park, which has a nice area for you to be able to see the eastern shore of the island. Somewhat more of a beachier area, but still quite rocky. Continuing along, we get to the southeastern portion, quite wooded area. Here we have more sand dunes at Sand Dune Park. So Washington Island has its share of the dunes that are notable elsewhere in Door County. Get to another marina at the Red Barn, which is a fun place to stop. And then finally turning left back onto Detroit Harbor. We head back to the main intersection with Main Road. And we turn back on Lobdell Point Road to the ferry dock. And back to the peninsula, to the mainland. One last thing, which you may have noticed as I was flipping through the pages, but what makes this map a little interesting is that it is not one map, but many. With all of the amenities, hiking places, nature places, restaurants, hotels, places to see. The people who have made this map split out each section into its own map. So the same view of the island, but with multiple circles for each location. So you get to see the island in multiple ways. Here we have places for recreation as well as places for drinking, frankly. Taverns is listed here, but that includes places for beer and cider, as well as the Bitters Club, which was the oldest, it is still the oldest continuously operating saloon in the country. That's number 9 here. Places for the arts. Places to stay, accommodations. More places to stay, as well as the marinas and docks. And finally, like most tourist maps, some places for places to advertise. And finally, on the inside of the map, you have the ferry schedule, which goes through each season and each time the ferry takes off from the mainland and from the island. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to the island, to pick up a map like this, not only to be able to navigate your own way around the island, no matter if you're driving or biking or taking a tourist service, but also to be able to tell when you need to mosey your way back to the dock to get home to the peninsula. That is everything I wanted to share for now about Washington Island. Thank you all for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time exploring the island with me. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.